Hiding in our closet, I watched my wife tell her sister, "He's so desperate for a baby. He'd never question if it's his," when planning to trick me. That's when I exploded out of that closet like a man possessed. And let me tell you, the look of absolute terror on both their faces was worth every second of the hell they'd put me through over the past 6 months. You see, I'm Marcus Hale, a 34-year-old project manager with a specialty in corporate fraud detection. Yeah, that's right. I literally make my living catching people who lie about money and manipulate financial systems for personal gain. My wife Clara apparently forgot this little detail about my professional expertise when she decided to conspire with her unemployed sister Sabrina to trap me into raising another man's child. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me paint you the full picture of just how spectacularly these two women underestimated exactly who they were dealing with. Clara and I had been married for 3 years. She's a successful real estate attorney making about $180,000 a year, while I pull in $220,000 annually consulting for Fortune 500 companies on internal theft and embezzlement cases. We weren't struggling financially, we weren't having marriage problems, and we'd been trying to have a baby for about 8 months with no success. Normal couple stuff, or so I thought. What I didn't know was that during those 8 months, Clara had been having an affair with her law firm's senior partner, Richard Blackwood, a married man with political aspirations who couldn't afford a scandal. And 3 weeks ago, Clara discovered she was pregnant with his child. Now, here's where Sabrina comes into the picture. Sabrina is Clara's 26-year-old sister who's been finding herself for the past 4 years while living off Clara's generosity. No job, no prospects, just an endless series of failed relationships and expensive hobbies funded by her successful sister. But Sabrina does have one talent. She's a master manipulator who specializes in creating elaborate schemes to solve problems that benefit her lifestyle. So, when Clara panicked about being pregnant with her boss's baby, Sabrina saw an opportunity. Her solution was to trick me into sleeping with Clara right around the conception time frame, then let me believe I was the father. Clara gets to keep her marriage and avoid a career-destroying scandal. Richard avoids political suicide, and Sabrina gets to continue living her parasitic lifestyle without worrying about Clara's marriage imploding and cutting off her financial supply. The plan was actually pretty sophisticated. They'd calculated the timing, researched the fertility window, and even had Clara start taking prenatal vitamins to sell the "we're trying so hard" narrative. Sabrina had coached Clara on exactly how to seduce me during the critical time frame, complete with fake ovulation predictor results and romantic dinners designed to get me in the mood. But here's what they didn't account for. I'm not just some naive husband who doesn't pay attention to details. I'm a forensic analyst who's spent the last 12 years of my career developing an almost supernatural ability to spot inconsistencies in people's stories and behaviors. I'd noticed Clara acting strange for weeks, the sudden interest in romantic dinners after months of claiming she was too tired, the way she'd disappear for sister bonding time with Sabrina right after these intimate evenings, the mysterious phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked into rooms, her newfound insistence on privacy about her phone and email accounts. Most telling was her completely changed attitude toward our baby-making efforts. For months, she'd been clinical about it, tracking ovulation, scheduling intimate time, treating it like a project to be managed. Suddenly, she was passionate and spontaneous, but only during very specific time frames that seemed oddly convenient. So, I did what I do best. I investigated. First, I hired a private investigator, Jake Morrison, a former police detective who specializes in adultery cases. It cost me $200 per day plus expenses. But within a week, he documented Clara's lunch meetings with Richard, their hotel visits, and most damning photographs of them together that made it clear this wasn't a professional relationship. Next, I consulted with Dr. Rebecca Foster, a fertility specialist and family friend. Without revealing my suspicions, I asked her about conception timing and the reliability of home pregnancy tests. What I learned was that Clara's claimed timeline for discovering pregnancy didn't align with when she was supposedly conceived based on our intimate schedule. Then, I did something that really showcased my professional expertise. I analyzed Clara and Sabrina's communication patterns. I legally accessed our family phone records through our joint account and cross-referenced call timing with Clara's behavioral changes. The pattern was unmistakable, Every major shift in Clara's approach to our marriage coincided with lengthy phone conversations with her sister. But the smoking gun came when I installed voice-activated recording equipment in our home. Completely legal, since I'm half owner of the property and all recording was in common areas. I'd learned from my corporate investigations that people always eventually discuss their schemes in detail, usually when they think they're safe from observation. That's how I ended up in our bedroom closet in the afternoon on a Tuesday, listening to my wife and her sister plan out the final details of their deception. The timing has to be perfect, Sabrina was saying as they sat on our bed, reviewing what looked like a calendar covered in notes. You're already 8 weeks along with Richard's baby. If Marcus finds out now, the dates won't match up with when you supposedly conceived. Clara was nervous, playing with her wedding ring. What if he gets suspicious? Marcus isn't stupid, Sabrina. His job is literally catching people who lie about things. That's exactly why this will work, Sabrina replied, with that smug confidence that had always irritated me. He's so desperate for a baby, he'd never question if it's his. Men like Marcus want to believe they're the hero of their own story. Give him a pregnancy to celebrate, and he'll never think to verify the timeline. That's when I couldn't contain myself any longer. I burst out of that closet and both women shrieked like they'd seen a ghost. "Oh, I'm questioning everything now," I said, my voice deadly calm despite the rage boiling inside me. "Starting with how long you've been planning to pass off Richard Blackwood's baby as mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Clara went completely white and started shaking. Sabrina, to her credit, tried to bluff her way through it. "Marcus, you don't understand what you heard." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted, pulling out my phone to show them the recording app that had been running. "I understand that my wife has been cheating on me with her boss. I understand that she's pregnant with his child. And I understand that both of you thought I was stupid enough to fall for an 8-week timeline discrepancy." Clara finally found her voice. "Marcus, please, let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been lying to me for months. How you plan to trick me into raising another man's child. How your sister coached you through seducing me at exactly the right time to make the dates work." I was pulling out printed documents now, evidence I'd compiled over weeks of investigation. "Or maybe you want to explain these hotel receipts, these photographs, these phone records showing 47 calls to Sabrina in the past month, including 3 that lasted over an hour each." Sabrina was still trying to maintain control. "You can't prove any of this means—" "I can prove all of it," I said, cutting her off. "Because unlike both of you, I'm actually good at my job. I have documented evidence of the affair. I have medical testimony about conception timing. I have recorded conversations about your conspiracy. And most importantly, I have resources you apparently forgot I possess. What they'd forgotten was that my job connects me with the best lawyers, private investigators, and forensic accountants in the city. While they'd been planning their deception, I'd been building an airtight case with professional help." "Clara," I said, looking directly at my wife, "you have 2 choices. You can file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences, in which case we split assets 50-50 and go our separate ways. Or you can force me to file for divorce citing adultery and fraud, in which case I pursue every available legal remedy, including a theft charge for the money you've spent on this affair using our joint accounts." I pulled out a thick folder prepared by my attorney. "These are the financial records showing $3,200 in hotel bills, restaurant charges, and gifts for Richard over the past 4 months, all paid from our shared credit card. In New York State, that constitutes theft of marital assets for an extramarital affair." Clara was crying now, but I wasn't finished. I turned to Sabrina. "As for you, I've documented your role in this conspiracy through recorded conversations and digital evidence. You've participated in a scheme to defraud me of child support for 18 years. Conservative estimate based on my income. That's about $400,000 in fraudulent financial claims. The district attorney's office has already confirmed they'd prosecute this as a felony if I provide the evidence." Sabrina's smugness evaporated instantly. "You can't be serious." "I'm dead serious. Check with your sister. I don't make threats I can't back up." I was organizing the documents with deliberate care, letting them see exactly how thoroughly I'd documented their scheme. "My private investigator has been building this case for 3 weeks. My attorney has been reviewing the legal implications. My forensic accountant has been calculating damages. While you two were planning to trick me, I was planning to destroy both of you professionally and financially. The beautiful thing about being a fraud detection specialist is that you learn to think several moves ahead of the people trying to deceive you. Clara and Sabrina had planned their scheme assuming I'd react emotionally. Instead, I'd reacted strategically, using every professional resource at my disposal to build an overwhelming case. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Clara, you're going to pack whatever personal belongings you want to keep and be out of this house by Friday. The mortgage is in my name, so you have no legal claim to the property. You'll file for divorce on Monday, citing irreconcilable differences. In exchange, I won't file criminal charges for the theft of marital assets or pursue the adultery angle that would destroy your legal career. Clara was nodding desperately. She understood that I was offering her a much better deal than she deserved. Sabrina, your situation is different. You don't have a career to protect or assets to preserve. What you have is a criminal conspiracy charge hanging over your head that could result in 3 to 5 years in prison. So here's your option. You disappear from our lives completely. No contact with Clara during the divorce proceedings, no interference in the legal process, no social media posts about this situation. You become invisible until everything is finalized. And if I don't? She asked, her voice much smaller than before. Then I file charges tomorrow morning and let the criminal justice system handle it. Your choice. The power dynamic in that room had shifted completely. 2 hours earlier, they'd thought they were clever conspirators with a foolproof plan. Now they were facing professional destruction and potential jail time, orchestrated by the same man they'd assumed was too trusting to catch their deception. Clara was the first to break. Marcus, I'm so sorry. You're right about everything. I'll do exactly what you've asked. The divorce, leaving the house, all of it. Just please don't destroy my career over this. Sabrina held out longer, but not by much. This is insane. You're insane. But fine, I'll stay out of it. Just don't file criminal charges. Smart choices, both of you, I replied. Because here's what you apparently didn't understand about me. I don't get mad, I get thorough. And right now, being thorough means ensuring that both of you face appropriate consequences for trying to defraud me out of 18 years of child support for another man's baby. Within a week, Clara had moved out and filed for divorce. The proceedings were swift and remarkably amicable, considering the circumstances. She got her personal belongings and her car. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and my dignity. Sabrina disappeared completely, apparently deciding that a fresh start in another city was preferable to jail time in New York. Clara told me later that her sister had moved to Portland and was finally working a real job for the first time in years. The final twist came 2 months later, when Clara's affair with Richard Blackwood became public knowledge. Apparently, she'd tried to continue the relationship after our divorce, but Richard's wife had hired her own private investigator. The scandal cost him his partnership and his political aspirations. Clara ended up leaving her law firm and starting over at a much smaller practice. As for me, I learned that my fraud detection skills work just as well on personal relationships as they do on corporate embezzlement cases. I also learned that the best revenge against people who underestimate your intelligence is simply proving them wrong with overwhelming evidence. 6 months later, I'm living in the same house I'd shared with Clara, but it feels completely different now. It's genuinely mine, filled with things I chose, decorated the way I wanted. I've been dating someone new, Dr. Patricia Wong, the forensic accountant who helped me analyze Clara's financial deceptions. She appreciates both my professional expertise and my personal integrity. The house that Clara thought she'd keep through deception became the foundation of my fresh start. The skills she'd forgotten I possessed became the tools of her downfall, and the baby she'd planned to trick me into raising. Well, that child will grow up knowing their real father, even if their parents' relationship began with lies and ended with consequences. Looking back, I realized that Clara and Sabrina made a fundamental error in their planning. They saw me as a mark to be manipulated rather than a professional investigator with the resources and expertise to uncover complex deceptions. They planned their scheme, assuming I'd react with emotion rather than analysis. But the most satisfying part wasn't proving them wrong. It was watching them realize they'd chosen to deceive exactly the wrong person. A man who literally specializes in catching people who lie about money and manipulate systems for personal gain. The irony was perfect, and the justice was swift. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being better at your job than your enemies expected.